Stop avoiding your erectile dysfunction issue. Peak Performance for Men is offering your best offer yet. Call today to book your free consultation and free blood flow evaluation. 1-800-210-8181. Peak Performance for Men helps over 80% of men who receive the treatment experience long-term improvement. Let the experts at Peak Performance for Men help you today. All it takes is one phone call for a free consultation, free blood flow evaluation. Call 1-800-210-8181. That's 1-800-210-8181.
Live from wherever you happen to be, it's the SNL Hall of Fame podcast. And now, here's your host, curator of the Hall, Jamie Dew.
Welcome back for another week here in the Hall of Bells. I'm obsessed with the bells, folks. Maybe by next season I'll get over it, but for now I am deeply in love with those bells. So my name is Jamie Dew, and I am your host here in the SNL Hall of Fame. Before we go any further, I'll ask you all, just a matter of etiquette, if you could please wipe your feet before you enter the hall and its most hallowed grounds. So there's that. We are weeks away now from voting commencing for the first class of the SNL Hall of Fame. Can you feel it? This is pretty staggering. When I dreamed this up, I didn't think we would make it a season, and yet here we are, growing more than ever. The growth month over month has been absolutely, just astounding. So keep telling your friends if you enjoy the show. If you don't enjoy the show, well, then just button your lip. Just button it up. You know what I'm saying? We've got a fantastic episode for you today. We have Dave Buckman from the Cold Towne Theatre in Austin, Texas, joining us. Dave is a multi-hyphenate, spent years with Second City, doing sketch and improv, now plies his trade by running the Cold Towne Theatre in Austin and a festival as well. So you should definitely check that out. That's coldtownetheatre.com, and town is with an E. Dave is bringing his massive brain into the hall to talk to me about Al Franken and Tom Davis. When these two gentlemen were hired, they took on one salary between them and packed up their things from Minneapolis and flew as quickly as they could to New York City before such an offer was rescinded. They were making hay at that time as a duo, sort of neo-vaudeville, I suppose. It was, we'd call it alternative sketch comedy now for sure, but it was different. It was unique. It was the voice of a generation, and Lawrence saw that, and as a result, SNL became what it is. But I'm talking your ear off here. Let's get to Dave Buckman, because that's who you tuned in for. So this is Franken and Davis on the SNL Hall of Fame podcast. Enjoy. So, give me a little bit of your, SNL, more focused SNL bona fides.
Bona fides. I started watching regularly probably around 82, 83 when I was like 10 or 11 years old. My parents had a top-loading VCR.
Yeah.
That so they had taped after Saturday morning cartoons were over. I would literally watch VHSs of SCTV and the first 7 years of Saturday Night Live. They had a lot of really good episodes that I would watch over and over again. And then probably, I think Christmas 82, my mom showed me this Mary Gross Out in the Field piece where she interviews kids about Christmas. And there's a young Seth Green. I think my grandmother knew Seth Green because she used to teach him in Philly when he was a kid in art. And she's like, "Oh, we know this kid. He's on Saturday Night Live." And I saw that sketch and it blew my mind. And I think I've been watching ever since that week.
Wow.
I missed an episode.
Wow. That's so great to have that so indelibly marked.
Oh, yeah. Well, I didn't know it until I went back to Peacock, and I went back and started watching from 80 on. I'm still burning through the seasons. I'm in 87 right now, trying to catch up to those Jan Hooks episodes. Yeah, I found the episode. Just like it hit me like, okay, I remember everything from here on out. From this sketch on, I remember everything. Some sort of vague memory of each of these sketches as I'm watching them again. So it's been a very fascinating summer, thanks to the pandemic, which I never would have time for if there wasn't a reason to sit on my couch for 2 years.
Yeah, this is absolutely unbelievable. You know, I mean, it's affording us these kind of neat opportunities where we can, make a connection over the internet, or
I would be at meetings or teaching classes or going to shows every night, and would never have time to watch 8 years of Saturday Night Live from the 80s, which is all I ever want to do in my life is watch Saturday Night Live from the 80s and 90s.
Oh, you're getting into the good years too.
Yeah.
So when you watch those early years, obviously there is a writing duo that you are here to discuss today and nominate to the ballot of the SNL Hall of Fame.
Talk about these princes of comedy.
That's right. And this is Franken and Davis.
Yes, Al Franken and Tom Davis, international communist revolutionaries. Franken and Davis. They were writers. They were head writers. They were featured performers. They were producers. They were the first comedy team to be hired as a whole, predating Lonely Island, Practical Theater Company, Good Neighbor, Please Don't Destroy, Dratch and Fay. They were the first writers to move into the cast, predating Sudeikis and Tim Robinson and Michael Bryan and Tina Fey and Dismukes and Jost. And they had their own ability. Lauren let them talk to the audience for 2 or 3 seasons, which he didn't let anybody else do except for Gilda occasionally and Weekend Update. So they had their own segment where they got to produce their own sketch and have a frame around it where they talk to the audience I feel, I just rewatching them, it feels like they are, I'm going to declare them right here and now, the last vaudeville team.
Oh,
they were the last vaudeville team. Those shows, you can just feel how much they were influenced by vaudeville and how much they wanted to subvert it. So I should have saved all that for the end of the episode, but that's kind of my case.
Let's dig into that a little bit more.
I mean, all due respect to Conan and O'Donoghue and Smigel and all that, but we're nowhere without Franken and Davis's footprint on this show. Their footprint probably is one of the largest from the writers.
I think so. Just by the era that they were there, right? They were both there for the first 5, and then Tom
shared
Davis, I think,
a writing credit, a writing salary. They shared a $350 a week's writing salary.
Yeah. Yes, that was sort of the agreement. They were the last hired, and when they were told that they could come to New York or asked to come to New York, that news was broken to them that they were sharing that $350 salary. But
not only were they the last original hires, they were the last original writers to leave as well.
Oh, yeah.
Maybe Jim Downey, I think, left the same year as well. But Jim Downey's not an original.
That's right. He wasn't there until the second season.
Yeah.
I really like that idea of. Have you read the Tom Davis book?
No, I haven't, but I've been reading a lot about it. Definitely some excerpts and whatnot. He's really just a good personable writer.
Yeah, it's a very easy read. It's one of those reads that just sounds like, yeah, somebody is just reading it to you. But he definitely speaks of some of the sketches that he wrote specifically. So when I think of the two of them, I think you've got this sort of absurdist with Davis, and then Franken, sort of formed a little bit more of the like the political ideology of the show. Yeah.
Oh, for sure. They were, I mean, all due respect to O'Donoghue, their mark on the show lasted a lot longer in terms of what comedy is now. They were straight absurd. They found the game. They heightened the game. Kind of what we know to be like the used to be style of comedy now, with a bit of the kind of the zaniness. The inmates running the asylum energy that the original cast had. They were that. They were the young kids kind of representing, the counterculture in the writer's room. And they continue to have just such a long shadow on the future of sketch comedy from, not only were they there for the first 5, but they came back for another 10 each.
Yeah.
In the 80s and 90s. So, 15 years in that writer's room.
They don't perfectly overlap either. Franken was there a little bit longer. So, bleeding into that.
Franken lasted 1 season longer than Davis at the end there. But then Tina Fey brought Davis back for 1 season, I think in 2002. So they each had 15 seasons between them.
Yeah. Yeah.
Just their last one was separate. And the things that they put up on the boards, you think about that original run. Do you get more iconic than Julia Child blender French chef sketch or Little Chocolate Donuts? The two most iconic Belushi and Aykroyd solo sketches they're responsible for. Those two alone are just right off the bat. But then you do their separate kind of what else they contributed. Al Franken had that whole Limo for Lamo speech about Fred Silverman, kind of burning NBC to the ground. Then they had Tom Davis writes Coneheads with Aykroyd. He writes Nick the Lounge Singer with Paul Schaefer and Bill Murray. He writes Theodoric of York with Steve Martin.
In the Middle Ages, medicine was still in its infancy. The art of healing was conducted not by physicians, but by barbers. The medieval barbers were the forerunners of today's men of medicine, and many of the techniques they developed are still practiced today. This is the story of one such barber.
Hello, Theodoric of York. It's springtime, and I'm here for my annual haircut and bloodletting.
Well, welcome, son of Miller, William. Well, it's time to see you now. Have a seat. Brunhilde, you start on his hair, and I'll open up one of his veins.
Yes, Theodoric.
Well, how's that little baby I delivered last Christmas when your wife died?
The little fellow is deformed.
Oh, that's right. I remember now. This may hurt.
And now it's time for another episode of Theodoric of York, Medieval Barber.
There you go. Well, looks like I have another patient. I'll be back in a minute to see how you're doing.
Right, thank you. Just a trim, Brunhilde.
Hello, Theodoric, Barber of York.
Hello, Joan, wife of Simpkin the miller. Well, how's my little patient doing?
Not so well, I fear. We followed all your instructions. I mixed powder of staghorn, gum of Arabic with boiled sheep's urine and applied it in a poultice to her face.
And did you bury her up to her neck in the marsh and leave her overnight?
Oh, yes. But she still feels as listless as ever, if not more.
Well, let's give her another bloodletting. Brunhilde,
Yes, Theodoric.
take 2 pints.
Yes, Theodoric. Will she be all right, Barber?
Well, I'll do everything humanly possible. But unfortunately, we barbers are not gods. You know, medicine is not an exact science, but we're learning all the time. Why, just 50 years ago, we would have thought your daughter's illness was brought on by demonic possession or witchcraft. But nowadays, we know that Isabel is suffering from an imbalance of bodily humors, perhaps caused by a toad or a small dwarf living in her stomach.
Well, I'm glad to see she's in such good hands.
Well, thank you.
Oh, Jesus. Oh, God. Theodoric, barber of York?
Say, don't I know you?
Yeah, you worked on my back.
What seems to be the matter with your friend here?
I broke his legs. I was at the Festival of the Vernal Equinox, and I guess I had a little bit too much meat, and I darted out in front of an ox cart. And it all happened so fast, the poor little fellas couldn't stop in time.
Well, you'll feel a lot better after a good bleeding.
But I'm bleeding already.
Say, who's the barber here?
Okay, just do something for my legs, could you, please?
Okay, well, look.
No!
We'll get him up on the gibbet over here. This might hurt a little bit, naturally.
Yes, I think it is. I think it's hurting.
A little pain never hurt anyone. Okay, hoist him up there. Okay, what we're doing is separating the bones a little bit, and if you don't feel better tomorrow, we'll just cut them off here.
I'm pretty sure I'll be feeling better tomorrow.
Okay, this will teach you to go easy on the mead. Brunhilde, put a few leeches on his forehead. Okay.
Thank you, Brunhilde. You're so kind.
How are we doing?
I feel faint, but...
Well, when was the last time you came in for a worming?
I guess I'm due, but I don't have time today. Please, accept my payment. This fine fat goose.
Oh, well, thank you. Brunhilde will give you your change.
Thank you, Theodoric.
Well, how's the little patient doing?
She's worse. She's looking pale.
Well, if she's not responding to treatment, we'll have to run some more tests. Brunhilde, bring the Caladrius bird.
Caladrius bird?
Yes, the Caladrius bird is a test. We put it next to the patient, and if it looks at the patient's face, then she will die. If she looks at her feet, then the patient will live. So, a little test. Hey! Can you interpret these signs? Seems to be looking up and down there. Well, okay, just take off. Well, I'm not sure how to read that. Just take 2 pints from her.
Yes, Theodore.
Take 2 pints from that bird, too.
She's dead. Dead! I can't believe my little girl is dead!
Now, Mrs. Miller, you're distraught. You're tired. You may be suffering from nervous exhaustion. Maybe we'll just take some of your blood, too. We'll just...
You're a charlatan! You killed my children just like you killed the rest of my family! Why don't you admit it? You don't know what you're doing!
Wait a minute. Perhaps she's right. Perhaps I've been wrong to blindly follow the medical traditions and superstitions of the past centuries. Maybe we barbers should test those assumptions analytically through experimentation and a scientific method. Perhaps this scientific method could be extended to other fields of learning. The natural sciences, art, architecture, navigation. Perhaps I could lead the way to a new age. An age of rebirth. A renaissance. Nah.
Tune in next week for another episode of Theodoric of York, Medieval Barber. When you hear Theodoric say...
Well, I think a little more bloodletting and some boar's vomit, and he'll be just fine.
Theodoric Barber of York. Like, I mean, I would do whatever it took to have my name attached to that. That's fantastic.
It's a brilliant piece of writing. And there's only 2 of them, which I was shocked about because I feel like I remember 5 or 6 of them, but there's only 2 Theodoric of York sketches.
Oh, yeah, I thought there was more too.
I thought so too. And
I guess it's just one of those ones that you just sort of you see the the little snippets on the anniversaries. I haven't rewatched the 70s in a while.
It's the medical one and the lawyer one, but I thought there was so much more, but that's it, really, honestly. But it's such a funny way of demonstrating what's wrong with society today and how we got there, how we used to do things and how slow it is to change things, and just completely barbaric at the same time. I can't believe people lived like that. You know what I mean? Like that's how you see these Game of Thrones shows and people are like, well, I guess it's my time to die. And no one seems to be scared of dying back then. That's how just people dealt with each other. And then you look at things like the Coneheads, like to come up with something like that and create a whole universe like the Coneheads or the whole universe of Nick the Lounge Singer.
Yeah.
It's brilliant.
Yeah. Oh, I mean, totally. It makes me wonder how many more people know Franken because of the route that he took. He was much more prominent in front of the camera, where Davis, was a predominant writer. But Davis did appear on camera as well. Can you think of any other memorable Davis moments?
One of the best ones. He does the Nixon Kissinger sketch where Nixon's talking to all the president paintings. He does Ask President Carter, and that's Tom Davis, who's needs to be talked down off some acid by Jimmy Carter on that phone call. He does the last episode of that run is one of my favorite sketches with Buck Henry is Lord and Lady Douchebag. He writes that one. And then later, 10 years later, Tom Davis comes back and writes The Continental for Christopher Walken. Al Franken puts up Stuart Smalley, which he originally wrote for Mike Myers. And then he does 20 sketches as Stuart Smalley, a book and a movie, and about a dozen catchphrases that people still say today.
Yeah, what a
that,
track record.
What a track record between the two of them. Some of those classic sketches there are, recurring characters, on top of the 10 sketches they did as the Franken and Davis show, which was their vaudeville show, kind of open sketch for them. And those are some weird ones. Now, a lot of them are problematic and a lot of them are visual jokes. So a lot of them aren't going to work for this podcast.
No.
Because you need to see the visual, or it's, I don't know. Tom Davis had a little bit of gay panic jokes, a lot of gay panic jokes. But that was the style back then, unfortunately. But there's a couple that play out. Like there's a great one where they have Gilda playing Kennedy's wife, Jackie Kennedy.
Okay.
And they're at a dinner party for some reason, and Tom Davis starts choking, and they all think he's playing charades, and he's trying to get them to understand that he's choking, and they're playing a game out of it, trying to guess what he's trying to tell them. It's very funny. It might work audibly, but it's very funny. If you're gonna pick any one of them, I'd play that one. But I mean, any of the ones I just mentioned, Coneheads, Theodoric of York, Nick the Lounge Singer.
It's just a litany of like
Little Chocolate Donuts. They're all amazing.
In the 50th anniversary, when they cut together an interlude of that era, almost everything that you named we'll see.
Yes. I just went to go see Al Franken live, by the way.
How was
last month? It was fantastic. He just basically told stories about the Senate. Does great impressions of Ted Cruz, does great impressions of Klobuchar, does great impressions of Chuck Grassley. And the stories are so funny. And he relates it back to Saturday Night Live a bit. And he takes questions from the audience. He's very, very charming. He still has the same pattern of delivery that lets you completely understand what he's saying and lets you catch up to his fast-moving brain. I love Al Franken so much. Yeah, it's a great partnership, and kind of wish you knew them back then, because I bet they would have been fun to hang out with and write sketches with.
Oh boy, just reading that Davis book, it's like, I don't know if Franken was as bad as Davis, but just an insatiable thirst for drugs. Like,
yes,
you know, every other paragraph, it's like, you know, he's like, well, I popped 2 of these and 3 of these and smoked a joint and then did this. And then, you know.
Yeah, that's what broke them up. That Al didn't like it anymore. And, you know, Tom ended up dying of neck and throat cancer, which is such a shame. It's got to have something to do with that amount of drugs that you're ingesting and putting on your esophagus and tongue.
And now to talk about the new Saturday Night Live staff and, of course, himself is former Weekend Update correspondent, Mr. Al Franken. Al?
Thanks, Chevy. It's nice to see someone else from the old show. You know, most of you probably know me, Al Franken, from the Al Franken Decade Reports I did last year, or from the Franken and Davis shows that my partner, Tom Davis, and I did over the 5 years of the original Saturday Night Live. Now, during the past 6 months, I have suffered countless instances of personal embarrassment from people coming up to me, Al Franken, and saying, hey, Al Franken, are you still writing for the show? Or Al Franken, how's the show going? Well, I'm here tonight to set the record straight. I am not involved in any way with the new Saturday Night Live. Now, there's been a lot of articles on how Saturday Night fell apart. Now, here's one in this week's TV Guide. I see, and it's a pretty good one. It's okay, anyway. I don't know if you can see that, but the real story has never fully been told until tonight. And you can believe it because it's coming from me, Al Franken. You see, Lorne Michaels, the producer of Saturday Night, decided after last season that it was time to go on to different things. Now, he figured the first season had been great. And then Chevy left. And the show, of course, got even better. Then after the 4th year, Danny and John left. Now, them we missed. So after 5 golden years, Lorne decided to leave. And so did those close to him, including me, Al Franken. So NBC had to pick a new producer. Now, most knowledgeable people, as you might imagine, hoped it would be me, Al Franken. But instead, without consulting the show's staff or cast, NBC picked Gene Domanian, an associate producer on the show. Now, I don't want to be cruel to Gene, because it might make you think less of me, Al Franken. Anyway, it took NBC 12 shows to figure out their horrendous mistake, and a month ago they fired Gene. Okay, now, who do they pick to rectify the original error? Someone who knows what he's doing? Someone like me, Al Franken? No, they picked Dick Ebersol. Now, I know Dick because he was a network executive in charge of late-night programming when Saturday Night started, and as such, was the first person to steal credit for the success of Saturday Night. Credit which should rightfully go to Lorne Michaels and me, Al Franken. Now, let me give you some background on Dick Mr. Humor Ebersol. His credits include The Waverly Wonders, starring Joe Namath, Roller Girls, and a show called Joe and Valerie about a kid from Brooklyn who dances every night at a disco. Now, to this day, Dick claims that he never saw Saturday Night Fever and that it was all an amazing coincidence. Anyway, I know Dick, and I can tell you that he doesn't know Dick. Okay. Now, the show's going to be a little better. No English-speaking person could do a worse job than Gene. But it's clearly time to yank this tired old format off the air. So if you're wondering what you can do for me, Al Franken, please write a card or letter to Put SNL to Sleep. 30 Rockefeller Plaza, New York, New York, 10020. Let's put this show out of its misery. You'll be doing a great favor for yourselves and for me, Al Franken. Thank you.
Thank you, Al. Al, you're actually going to be hosting the show next week. Is that all right?
Yeah, it'll be my partner Tom Davis and me, Al Franken. We'll be hosting, and our special guest will be the Grateful Dead.
Well, thanks, Al.
Yeah, so watch next week, but not after that.
Thank you, Al.
But to do 11 Coneheads, 11 Lounge Singer sketches, these were zeitgeist characters. These are ones that people still go. If Dan Aykroyd walked into a room wearing that Conehead, or Bill Murray gets anywhere near Paul Schaefer on the piano, everybody's goose pimples are going to go crazy.
Yes.
That's because of Tom Davis, or anybody that ever says, and that's okay.
Yeah.
Or I'm good enough, I'm smart enough, I'm doggone it, people like me. I'm in a shame spiral. These are things that people still throwing around 30, 40 years later.
Wow. Yeah, it has been 30 years since that Stuart Smalley run, hasn't it? Wow.
Right.
In terms of them getting to New York and then really carving out, what the show looks like throughout the 70s, what do you think about what they did when they had their second run? Is there anything? Well, I guess Stuart Smalley is, but does Davis leave as big a mark in the second run?
Well, the Continental is a pretty iconic recurring character. I don't know what else anything big that he did while he was there, but he was there for 10 years.
Yeah.
They were both there for about 10 years in the 80s, helping, shaping, producing, guiding. Sarah Silverman tells a story about stabbing Al Franken with a pencil at the writer's room.
Oh my God.
But to have original writers, those two and Jim Downey in the room, when Lorne comes back, and I'm sure that was as much for Lorne's comfort as anybody else's, just to have people there that know how the show is run, know how to run the room, and how to get it to air, was invaluable to him, to come back and mount this thing again, and to guide all those new writers, Smigel and Conan and Odenkirk, and be there for that whole process. And even, doing some on-air stuff, they both played, presidential candidates during all those times, and they'd pop up every once in a while. Al Franken more than Tom at that point, but, just to have those kind of veterans lending writer's room and on-air seniority, I'm sure was absolutely invaluable. Just knowing what I would want in that situation as a producer, to have somebody that was there from the original crew keeps us kind of focused on the same thing. So Lorne can work on the bigger things.
Yeah. Yeah. So, and then that becomes the template for what the show, you know, how Lauren ended up running the show like into the 90s, right? Like as executive producer, as he moved into, you know, that role, more moving away from day-to-day stuff. He brought Higgins on board and, you know, that sort of stuff.
But yeah, I was there for the Phil Hartman years, for the Mike Meyer years, for the Chris Farley years. They were there, still contributing, still guiding that new generation of comedians that are now all elder statesmen themselves. And above all, he becomes a United States Senator, and a really good one at that too. Which is, I mean, I couldn't vote for him, but I did send him money because I believe all comedians, should they want to be in office, should be. So I even contributed to Gary Kroger ran for the Iowa Senate race. I made a contribution to him too. So,
that's really great. Any
Saturday Night Live alumni that want to run for office, I will donate to your campaign. Absolutely.
You heard it here first. We painted a good picture of why they deserve to be on the ballot, but why should they be in the actual Hall of Fame?
They have had more jobs at Saturday Night Live than anybody else. They are original writers, and they were the last ones to leave the writer's room from the original crew. Yeah, they had a hand in several generations of casts, writing for them and guiding them and leading them. And their satirical sensibility is the reason Saturday Night Live is considered a satirical touchstone for America. There wasn't that many other satirical artists in that original room. You had joke writers, you had shock writers, you had relationship writers, but Franken and Davis were this satirical, reflect society back and what's wrong with the society back at the audience. And that's really, you could draw a straight line from them to Adam McKay to Tina to Seth.
Well, I could just listen to you talk about Saturday Night Live.
I could do it all day.
for a long time. So we'll definitely have you back, you know, for sure. If people want to find out more about the theater or about you on the interwebs, where do they look?
You can follow me at Dave Buckman, Buckman. You can follow my theater, Cold Towne Theatre, ColdTowne Theater in Austin, Texas, at Cold Towne Theatre, or atxsketchfest.com. We'll be having an in-person Sketchfest for the first time in 2 years later this year. So that'll be a lot of fun as well. We're trying to move into a bigger venue. So if you want to donate to Cold Towne's efforts to open a new venue in this pandemic, we sure would appreciate it.
Well, thanks so much for doing this.
Thank you for having me. I've been looking forward to it.
Dave Buckman was looking forward to coming to the SNL Hall of Fame to talk to me about Franken and Davis. How lucky am I? He was looking forward to it. This is so cool. If you are on the SNL Twitters, you've seen Dave Buckman around. If you've listened to any of the other podcasts out there, you've heard him. I feel very fortunate that we were able to get him for this one. This was a great episode. Franken and Davis, huh? You know, I don't know if they were on your list before, but they probably should be if you enjoyed the show, because you know, they were, you know, maybe they didn't get to be there for the unveiling of the architecture, but they wrote the goddamn blueprints, you know? So there's that to consider. And it's got to be something you consider when you cast one of your votes. This is also a 2-for-1. I mean, hey, you pick Lonely Island and Franken and Davis. You've cast 2 votes. You've got 5 fucking Hall of Famers. So, consider that. So again, I want to thank Dave Buckman for stopping by. Want to thank Franken and Davis for, helping invent the show. And we'll see you next week. And we're in the home stretch, folks. Talk to you then. But in the meantime, would you please turn out the lights? Because the SNL Hall of Fame is now closed.
Thanks for listening to the SNL Hall of Fame podcast. You can find everything you need to know about the show at snlhof.com. Don't forget to subscribe, share, rate, and review the show wherever you get your podcasts. This is Doug Denant saying, this is Doug Denant saying, see you next month in the hall.
Podcasts and such.
Stop avoiding your erectile dysfunction issue. Peak Performance for Men is offering your best offer yet. Call today to book your free consultation and free blood flow evaluation. 1-800-210-8181. Peak Performance for Men helps over 80% of men who receive the treatment experience long-term improvement. Let the experts at Peak Performance for Men help you today. All it takes is one phone call for a free consultation. Free blood flow evaluation. Call 1-800-210-8181. That's 1-800-210-8181.